Hello again. I'm Trip Rogers. He's the Hall of Famer Mike Sheck. Together, we are the Fantasy Sultans. We are the leaders, not the followers. You listen to us, you watch us, you learn. I could not believe this week, and I get a lot of emails. I scour X, I scour the internet just to see what other people are saying. And one supposed tout, insider, 80% of the players we've either mentioned in weeks past or we've been on. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, we got to be doing something right. Yet we're 2-6 in the Rat League. You're 2-6 in our league. And I'm 2-6 in the Best Buy League. What the hell are we doing wrong?
2-6 is a good number, I guess. I really don't know, but
what the hell are we doing wrong? I mean, answer me that. Unreal. Week 8, once again, it was Bimageddon. And in some cases, this week probably is just as bad with 4 teams out, 3 of them with real players on them. Then there's the NYJ. We won't go into that. But I really think last week, I mean, you can talk about the big injury, the Scattaboo injury, which was just gruesome. And that's a killer for the Giants. But again, you had these late scratches, you had these injuries on top of buys. And I cannot remember, Mike, I had multiple teams that my bench either was out or was on bye. I had nobody to put in. And I've never seen that. And we've been playing fantasy football for the longest time. I have never had that situation where I just, and again, sometimes I had to scramble to get somebody because everybody else was in the same boat.
Yeah, well, let us be one of the first to wish everybody out there a happy Halloween as we approach Halloween. Some frightfully cool performances last week, some eerie ones too, some beautiful surprises. Welcome back to Saquon Barkley, though. The running back in a big way. Prior to week 8, he averaged 3.3 yards per carry and season high 88 rushing yards. Well, week 8 against the New York Giants, 14 carries, 150 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. He's still creating yards after catch, but I think the biggest factor is the success of the offensive line. It's come out in a big way. The blocking, Barkley, his first and second 20-yard games on the ground in which, he saw a 65-yard score. We really need to talk, though, about his injury, and I'll talk about that in our import-exports coming up. We're going to get to that, but I want to talk about tight ends. And what do you think of, or who do you think of when you think of tight ends? You're thinking of George Kittle. You're thinking of Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta. Are you thinking of Tucker Kraft? I don't think so, but he has been pretty hot as of late on National Tight Ends Day. Over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He's been a great option for fantasy owners, and Jordan Love for the Green Bay offense. Another player who's been great, Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. Yeah, the Bengals lost to the New York Jets, but Chase is on pace to see 210 targets on the season. That's right, I said 210 targets. He had 28 in week 7, 19 in week 8, 720 receiving yards on the season, 5 touchdowns, no Joe Burrow, no problem. He's got the other Joe, though, and his name is Flacco. He's getting it done. I started with Saquon. Remember, he was the league's leader last season. Well, there's a player who's might be in his shoes this year. Jonathan Taylor from Indianapolis. He is the league's fantasy MVP so far this season. Over 30 fantasy points. That's not the first time that's happened this season. I think it's happened 3 or 4 times that he's gotten over 30 fantasy points. He is getting the job done in Indy. They are 7-1. They're rolling with Daniel Jones. And, you know, we talked about it. He was the second-round pick. And I got him in the Sultans League, and he's been paying off dividends for me. Unfortunately, for my team, not so great, but he's been one of the players that's been getting it done on my team.
The Sultans Bowl was this last Sunday. Mikey's a
Yeah.
loser. That's all I'll
Yeah.
say. We don't trash talk. Keep it
And did you
classy.
hear me talk about the Sultans Bowl? I did not, because it was
We
not
keep it
good.
classy.
Right.
We keep it classy.
Yeah.
We keep it classy. But Mike, you made a good point. Jonathan Taylor was a second round, and I think we had said Jonathan Taylor. I liked him this year. I thought that they've got a decent line there. I thought that they had good options, not great options, but good options. And again, I thought Anthony Richardson would be the guy, but Daniel Jones is surprised, and Daniel Jones is showing us some of what he showed Giant fans in 2022. And I can't, there's a lot of people who say, why didn't we see this before? The Giants have no offensive line. Giants had Saquon Barkley, remember, but last year they did not. And Tyrone Tracy was the guy, but that offensive line was terrible. I mean, everybody complains about Giants, these players going elsewhere and doing well. Well, it's because they're playing behind good offensive lines. I'm sorry. Philadelphia's offensive line does not compare to the New York Giants offensive line. No way, shape, or form. And, there's a reason why Saquon Barkley did so well. And, of course, Sunday, I had something to do in the morning, and I literally got home after the game had started, and I honestly flipped the game on. It's the first play I saw, Barkley, 65-yard run. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And I said at that point, it's going to be a long day. And when Scadaboo got injured, I just knew it was over for the Giants. So, and again, fantasy, we continue to scratch our heads. And we've said this, I want to say we've said it a couple of times. You've got to scan the waiver wire report in your league, because there are some people who make some dumb mistakes. That's all I can say. In the Sultans League, somebody waived Jaden Daniels. Seriously. Somebody waived Jaden Daniels.
And somebody picked him up.
Of course. But that to me is, Jaden Daniels, you drafted as a quarterback, 4th, 5th round, 3rd maybe even.
Yeah.
And you're letting him go because he sat out one game? Seriously? The other quarterbacks on the team, I'm not going to name who it is. The other quarterbacks on the team are Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold. Kept those two, got rid of Jaden Daniels. That's all I have to say. However, I will say, Mike, they're ahead of you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So is
everybody else.
So are 10 other teams, my friend. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're at week 9, and week 9, while it's not the Bimageddon last week, I mentioned this earlier because you have two teams that really are fantasy players and you've got to worry about. Eagles, Buccaneers. And you have two teams that nobody cares about. Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets. The Jets won. There's a shock. The Jets won. Yay. Well, who cares? Is it really going to change life? Well, they won a game. They're now 1-7 instead of 0-8. But they're in the bye, and the Jets aren't playing this weekend. Like I said, if you have any New York Jets, I let Justin Fields go. That's how down I am on the NYJ. I let him go because even though I was dying for a quarterback in one league, I just let Justin Fields go. I wasn't no part of him. But Mikey, we got week 9. We've got import exports, and again, probably have some holes in your offense, especially if you have Jalen Hurts or you have Saquon Barkley, Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay wide receivers. You have some holes to fill.
Yes,
so.
You do.
Hall of Famer, you get to fill them first with our imports exports.
I'm going to give you an obvious choice if he's available on waivers, and the keyword is if, just like Jaden Daniels. San Francisco quarterback Brock Purdy. Now, he hasn't played in weeks due to injury, but it looks like he's going to finally get that nod this week. When he was in the lineup for the 49ers, he delivered no less than 20 fantasy points, and he's got the weapons around him. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, who also could be back in a few weeks. San Francisco has a pretty soft schedule coming up. I have him on my roster, never dropped him, kept him on the bench, but some people may have let him go because they didn't want to stick around with him. Not the wisest choice, but because, at some point we knew he was going to return. Even if he's not ready to start this week and he's not a go, I still say you could benefit from the pickup. So import Brock Purdy if he's available. All right, let's talk about 480 carries. Yeah, we questioned it last year. How durable would Saquon Barkley be? He's been reliable so far, but last week he suffered a groin injury. Now, it doesn't appear to be a significant injury, but I treat this like a warning sign. Tank Bigsby, his backup in Philadelphia, had a decent day against the Giants. He carried the ball 9 times for 104 yards. He's going to be the player to target if Barkley misses any time. A handcuffed player to Barkley, or if you're simply just picking him up, the Eagles have a bye week this week. So now's the time to jump on the Bigsby bandwagon. And I say it a lot, fantasy is like a game of chess. You got to be 2 moves ahead of your opponent. Grab him before your opponent does. I made the move in Sultans League and grabbed him. He is now on my bench moving forward. Next up, and I do believe our buddy Mac had him as an export. You had him as an import. I'm going to have him as an import. Wide receiver Troy Franklin in Denver.
Yes.
Franklin had a big week 8. And most importantly, he led the Broncos in targets with 8. He caught 6 of 8 for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. Over the past few weeks, his role has grown in that offense. He has seen 18 targets with 3 touchdowns. If he's on waiver, scoop him up. Let's go on to the exports. And I'm going to talk about Tennessee's Tony Pollard. Now, here's a player who's had a disappointing start to the season for the Titans. Last week, 11 carries for 44 yards. Didn't score a touchdown since week 5. And so far, Tajay Spears is getting the job done for Tennessee. So I don't think you want this player on your roster. I would drop him. Let's take a look at 2 wide receivers, Keenan Coleman in Buffalo and Jerry Jeudy for Cleveland. Now, despite Josh Allen's success, the Bills they really need a playmaker. They invested in Coleman. He hasn't been great. Just 40 receiving yards in 2 of 7 games. Last week, Buffalo relied on James Cook and got the job done. I think they're going to be relying on him a bit more. Flip it over to Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, not much faith going on in Cleveland with Dylan Gabriel. He's the rookie. The offense is struggling. He hasn't scored a touchdown. And right now, the tight ends really are the only ones that are worth a grain of salt to pick up in Cleveland. Judge Jerry Judy's looking like he is more like he is in contempt. So I would export him.
There you go. All right, my imports. I'm going to start in Seattle with Sam Darnold. Seattle entered week 8 by on a hot streak, winning 5 of 6 games. And then that 6-game stretch, Darnold had 3 top 12 finishes in terms 12 TDs, 4 interceptions. His only down game was week 1. Since week 1 was just before the bye against the Texans defense. Held Darnold to 213 yards passing, a touchdown and a TD, but Seahawks won that game. Week 9's matchup isn't very imposing. Seattle travels to Washington, taking on a Commanders defense that ranks as the 5th most friendly to quarterback scoring. Darnold also follows that with a Week 10 match against Arizona. If you need him beyond this week, schedule does get tougher after that, ranking the 7th worst quarterback for scoring from Week 11 on. But Sam Darnold is a guy, if you need somebody right now, and again, you're caught with injuries, he's a guy worth picking up. Mac Hollins in New England, wide receiver. Despite ranking 2nd in New England's receiving core in terms of the number of steps, he hadn't hit 50 yards receiving or scored more than 8 PPR and any points in any game until Week 8. And against the Cleveland defense, he had his best game of the year, 7 targets, 89 yards. And listen, Mac Hollins is going to be somebody who is going to be productive down the road, and he is available. I would pick him up. He's got a tough matchup against Atlanta this week, but after that, week 10 trip to Tampa Bay, and the Bucs have had some issues containing wide receivers. All right, you want to maybe look ahead and maybe stash someone. Tyler Shuck, quarterback in New Orleans. Spencer Rattler was benched after the first half in Sunday's loss to the Bucs. 3 INTs at a loss. Chicago the week before certainly played into that move. Now, Shuck did not do anything great, but the outlook is tough. They have the second toughest remaining schedule for quarterbacks. The Saints are 1-7 so far. Guess who has the toughest remaining schedule for quarterbacks? The NYG. Assuming Shuck is allowed to start, low-end QB2 and Superflex formats. In a one quarterback lead, you don't want to get him. I don't necessarily think you need to get him. You could get him as a stash. And again, he's just been named the starter, so that could help him. We've been high on Quinshon Judkins for the Cleveland Browns. I think I had him. It was week 1 or week 2. I said, grab him now. Well, unfortunately, he suffered an AC joint sprain in week 8. Now, the Browns say it's day-to-day, but he is off this week to recover. But after Judkins left, Sampson led Cleveland's backfield, 46% of the snap, second on the team with 6 targets. Jerome Ford was thought to be the guy who would replace or would be the starter. In fact, if you recall, early in the season, he was the guy who was the change of pace back over the last month. But Sunday's usage points Sampson will be the first guy up if Judkins misses some time. Should Sampson make his way into the Cleveland lineup, he would quietly have solid weekly upside. And the Browns have an easy schedule against remaining running backs. All right, export candidates. Marvin Mims for the Denver Broncos. Mims has been passed on the depth chart by Pat Bryant. Only 19 snaps, 1 target in week 8. 5 or fewer PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. Also, Tampa Bay wide receiver Sterling Shepard. Bucs are off this week, so he can't disappoint you. But when they emerge from the bye, Shepard probably going to have a hard time earning snaps. The team should get Chris Godwin back week 10, but in one league I had him on waivers, but I think I missed getting the players, so I still have him on my team. And that was one of those, do I want to? What's my worst guy? And it's like Chris Godwin is my worst guy. And so, maybe the gods are smiling on me and saying, hey, no, we're not going to do that. Those are my import exports for week number 9 in the NFL.
Well, it is time, as course, for the candy lineup to come out and import exports. I got the candy bowl here, right here.
The candy bowl.
I am importing. Yes, I am going to import Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I do love me some Reese's. Choice. And you know what? This year, the the Franken Werewolf ones are really good. They have the cream inside. I like those. I'm going to go with those. All right. I'm importing Crunch too. Yeah, okay. Crunch. Nestle Crunch. Who could go wrong with the crispy rice wafer? Love that Crunch.
Favorite. All-time favorite.
Export. And, well, you know what? Candy corn. There's only so much I could take of it.
Nope.
And candy corn is it. Brock's candy corn, my dentist would probably approve of me as well on that one. So there we go with the candy lineup. How about your candy lineup, sir?
All right. Well, first off, I am going to export Skittles. I have never liked Skittles. I am going to export Skittles. I am going to import our draft day favorite, peanut M&Ms. They're great.
Like it. Yep.
Again, a classic choice. You can't go wrong.
Right.
And I am going to import Chunky. That is my favorite. And you could, these are the big chunky bars. Yeah. You can only get them, believe it or not. They used to have them in Walgreens, and I used to get them there. The only place I can get them now is Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel has the big candy bars and stuff. And they're the only ones, that's the only place I can get these. So, and I do have to mention that my buddy Mac took care of me last year. Got
Very
me like
nice.
7 chunky bars, the big chunky bars. Of course, now that I'm on Manjaro, I'm not eating much candy. Not eating much candy. No, I'm not. I'm not. So, and again, we're dropping this just the day before Halloween. So, hope you have a great Halloween. I hope we weren't too scary for you. Again,
Ooh,
maybe that's
that's
why.
scary.
Maybe that's why you listen. Maybe that's why you listen to the podcast and don't
Yeah.
watch us on the podcast because we're
Probably.
too scary. The two
That's
of us
right.
are just very scary. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. So anyhow, we're and believe it or not, we've reached week 9, so we're at the halfway point of the NFL season. And in terms of fantasy, for most leagues, you're now heading into the home stretch. Most leagues end after week 13 or week 14, and so you're in the home stretch here. And again, the moves you make now could be what pays off in the end. So again, I can't stress this enough. And Mike, I think you agree with me. You got to watch the waiver wire.
Yeah.
You've got to see who people are releasing. And that's an opportunity because people don't read it. People don't pay attention. And those are the people who will lose out because you listened to the Fantasy Sultans.
And, I will say this with the injuries that have been, people have just been wrecked with injuries this season. The bye weeks have come. It is very difficult to secure a healthy lineup. And that's why, again, you need to go to the waiver wire because, those players are going to help you out week to week. I've been changing out players week to week just because of injuries or buys and stuff like that. And that's what you got to do. You got to try to stay consistent as possible and be ahead of the curve. Like I mentioned, it's like a game of chess. You got to be 2 moves ahead of your opponent. I picked up Bigsby in the Sultans League. Of course, we mentioned the Jaden Daniels move. You drop him. Other people, some owners say they're trash, maybe. Other people pick them up, think they're treasures. So,
Hey,
you know,
hey,
you
what's
know,
the old line? One man's trash, another man's
yeah,
treasure.
yeah.
That's right. You were so
Uh-huh.
right. You've got a question about fantasy. All you've got to do is email the Fantasy Sultans at gmail.com. Our podcast drops every Thursday at 9 o'clock in the morning. You can also listen to the Fantasy Sultans. Our Sunday with the Sultans broadcast is on Fox Sports Radio New Jersey and online at foxsportsradionewjersey.com. We do that on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock. It's essentially what we do with this, except a little more localized for the New York and Philly markets. And obviously, there's only one team playing this week, so it's going to be a rather long discussion on the NYG. But you can join us on Sundays on Fox Sports Radio NJ.com. We give you the information. We try to help you. As I said at the beginning, and it was amazing when I looked at this one sheet. We are leaders. We're the ones giving you the info before they are. So you're listening to this podcast. Well, you're going against us. So, therefore, maybe not as, good. But You're learning a little bit about fantasy. And maybe, again, if you listen to us, as some people do, they make some moves that will make them winners. He's the Hall of Famer Mike Scheck. I'm Trip Rogers. We are the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.